Hello. I'm currently actually in British Columbia, visiting friends, but also having quite a few work meetings. And I've come across several narratives in the last couple of days online that link into a talk that I recently gave at the University of Victoria. And I've just come across one again. And so I just thought I'd just record a message about my thinking because it doesn't quite fit into the LinkedIn format. So I just thought I'll try that. So one thing that really concerns me is that there's a storytelling technique that is used by quite a few coaches, consultants, and people who work quite successfully in the human development field and develop programs. And that's a story that gets told again and again, and definitely with great success, because otherwise it would have to change. And it's often used in order to sell a transformative product. And it sounds something like describing our predicament as a story that destroys the planet, that increases polarization, that seeds fear, leads to war. And then to contrast that with a glorious story of collaboration, of ecological growth, of community, of bliss, of harmony. And then to say, if you buy into our journey or if you buy into our product, then we will guide you from A to B. And so I'm sure you recognize this. Sounds good. What is there not to like? And so it's like, and sign up here and we will guide you. So for me, the irony is that this kind of marketing approach and sort of selling technique is in itself setting up a binary in the way that it reduces the complexity of life into there's this narrative and then there's this narrative, and this is bad and this is good, and we will take you from the bad one to the good one. And so polarities that are actually part of life and part of the whole are contrasted in a rather fragmented and polarized way itself as a way to sell a strategy to reduce polarization. So I hope it makes the contradiction clear. And I also hope that when we start to think about who we are as human beings, living complex ecosystems, that that in itself should dismantle this kind of reductive narrative, because nobody is capable to ever just be kind and friendly and collaborative and open. And so, what are the unintended consequences of a worldview that suggests that it is as easy as to learn how to turn away from our shadow? And so, there's also something in a lot of mythologies that teaches us that the brighter the light that we promise and that we shine, the darker the shadow that we will create. And so, the two are intricately connected, interconnected. So the two, any polarity is part of the whole. We can't travel and leave one behind. And we need to start to learn how to take care of it. And that's a really messy process. So then the question is, what makes people claim to already know what it takes to get from A to B? And what makes them think that they are the right guides and that they've done the work to be actually ready for this kind of change? So I think that's, for me, more and more a conversation that we need to be willing to have. And to be really careful about the amazingly strong pull that the heroic narrative of exceptionalism that puts me apart as the wise one that can guide others. I think that's the narrative itself that needs to be decentered. And the problem is that actually that narrative sells. It sells books, the kind of whole marketing industry for self-help books is booming. But I would want to contrast this with many mythological stories and also religious stories that tell us that wisdom is actually often found in really unexpected places. And there's many stories that say that the real Messiah is actually often killed whilst people follow the wrong leaders home. So my question is, what actually helps us with discernment and with this amazing longing for elders in this time, this longing to have guidance in a time where maybe these are such unprecedented times that maybe nobody really can ever know. So this is not a critique of support and mutual learning contexts, but I guess it's a critique of a certain temptation to oversell what can be achieved, and that ironically thereby already setting up the conditions that the product promises to rectify. So personally, I would really like to see more conversations about the hunger for wisdom, the hunger for true integrated leaders. And I recognize that hunger in myself. And how that hunger often is unintentionally already perverted right from the start. So where we create these insidious double binds that trap us into repeating the same patterns over and over again, whilst promising that this time round it will be different. And so another problem is that programs that don't promise this, that don't try and oversell, are actually not as popular. And it's also so much more difficult for these programs to gain funding, to get endowments or philanthropic support. So it seems that there's something about what people are craving for, and therefore what creates a market, traps us again and again in the same narrative that we're actually hoping to transcend. So I guess this post is just to name this double bind and to name that to a certain extent, it's our responsibility to first notice our own participation in this co-creation. So where we both either put people on pedestals, put programs on pedestals, and then often also try and tear people down when they don't deliver. In the same way, in the way we write funding applications or in the way we grant funding, how are we repeating this same insidious loop that keeps us all trapped? So this is not a promise about a way out. This is just actually, in psychotherapy, change comes from bringing awareness to how we keep ourselves trapped. So that's the very first step. And the more we start to be able to see it and to recognize it, the less unconscious it is that we are pulled into the same patterns. And that opens up choice. So that's all I wanted to say for now.